Something you can point to in your life, political life, or in your life in the last 4 years that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes, and they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
Some voters, though, might ask, you've been in the White House for 4 years, you were vice president, not the president, but why wasn't any of that done for the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done.
2022, 2023, there were record border crossings. Your administration took hundreds of executive actions. It didn't stem the flow. Numbers kept going up. Finally, in 2024, just in June, 3 weeks before the first presidential debate with Joe Biden, you institute executive actions that had a dramatic impact, really shut down people crossing over. Why didn't your administration do that in 2022, 2023?
First of all, you're exactly right, Anderson. And as of today, we have cut the flow of immigration by over half. In fact, the numbers I saw most recently, illegal immigration
But if
is
it was
low.
that easy with that executive action, why not do it in 2022, 2023?
Because we were working with Congress and hoping that actually we could have a long-term fix to the problem instead of a short-term fix.
You couldn't have done one and both at the same time?
Well, here's the thing. We have to understand that ultimately this problem is going to be fixed through congressional action.
Pretty much the Kamala CNN town hall pretty much summarized Kamala's entire campaign. Cannot answer a direct question. Somehow it's Donald Trump's fault, right? She didn't do anything wrong. They tried their best, right? When criticized substantively by Anderson Cooper, I think Anderson Cooper did a decent job. I felt like he could have pushed back a lot harsher on her, but hey, that's just me. As you saw from the intro, I gave 3 compilations of like some things that really stood out to me. For instance, the question he asked, has you ever made a mistake in your life? And she wasn't genuine at all. I could tell she wasn't genuine at all, because essentially she just said that my biggest mistake is I work too hard. Essentially, that's what it seemed like it sounded like to me. And I find it funny how she answered the questions by saying that, oh, I want to be prepared to answer a question and not just give scripted talking points. Something along I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, but it's beyond me. Like she pretty much vindicated why I voted for Donald Trump, which I did already. I already voted. I already voted today here in Florida already. I already cast my vote for Trump. I'm out. I'm out. I can't be convinced anymore. I already made my decision, and she vindicates my decision every time she opens her mouth, right? And I think CNN is slowly coming around too.
Republicans would take another hour of Kamala Harris. We'd just press play, let her keep going. We'd pay for another hour to let her keep not answering the questions. I think Anderson's asking her, well, why haven't you done it? You've been there for 4 years. Why haven't you done any of this? And the word salad answer she gave to that was just mind-boggling. I mean, it's blown up the internet, her answer to that question. I think the things that are troubling for people were her responses to, Van said about what you're going to do to reduce costs when they asked her at the beginning. We're hurting economically. She said, I'm going to prosecute corporations, right? That's not going to lower costs. Oh. How are you going to make things better for me? I'm going to prosecute people. Trump bad is not a message that's going to get her elected. Trump bad message, I disagree with.
And this is how I feel about her, Biden, Democrat Party in 2024. Promise everything, deliver nothing, blame someone else for it, right? Or you do a Hail Mary buzzer beater, finally fix the problem because it's an election year, right? You had 2 years to do it before the election, and you took your sweet time doing it before the election. And now I think you only did the border for political reasons, right? And I had a lot of liberals or whatever in my comment section talking about how can you support a felon, but here they are making murals of George Floyd, right? The hypocrisy of the left, right? Donald Trump is not a threat to democracy. He's a threat to Democrat hypocrisy. Because they're crying about how can you support a felon? Well, aren't you guys the party that push for felons to regain their right to vote, right? You guys support felons in policy, how you deal with crime, but you want to get mad at conservatives for supporting a felon in an election. Make it make sense. Make it make sense, Democrats. You can't. And he's going to appeal his 34 counts that made him a felon by a biased political court, where the jury selection was picked from a county that went 80% against Trump. Time after time, Trump wanted to remove venues to a different, more bipartisan location in New York. He kept getting denied by a judge whose daughter fundraises off the fact that her dad is going to prosecute Trump. But you can never doubt what a liberal says. You can never doubt what a Democrat says. And pretty much this town hall vindicated everything I thought about the Democratic Party. For anybody with some sense, when Trump talks about the enemy within, why would he be talking about the American people and not the corrupt establishment government that has been trying to bankrupt and jail him? Make it make sense. But they swear like, oh no, there's no way they're talking about us, the government. No way, he must be talking about the American people. What a load of idiocy. And another thing I'll ask before I move on to this next clip is that inflation, right? There's a study out there where student loan forgiveness contributed 27% towards inflation. And my question to you is, what's really causing inflation? Isn't it government involvement, government spending? Or do you actually believe that corporations are price gouging? And why did corporations decide to price gouge in 2024 when they could easily more get away with it in 2019? Answer that question for me in the comment section. But I digress. We're going to highlight this other faulty narrative of the Democratic Party about this fear-mongering around Trump and him being Hitler. And it's so funny how when you call out their tactics, how these Democrats, essentially, they fear-monger their voters into voting for Kamala Harris instead of voting on policy and substance like they claim to be online. Let's take a look.
I don't understand how we got so toxic and just so divided and so bitter. And
He said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens.
Probably will shock Kamala Harris and the rest of her campaign staff to learn that there are incumbent Democrat U.S. senators in this country right now running television ads touting all their work with this modern-day Hitler. I wonder if Kamala Harris tonight in our town hall meeting will call for them to take these ads off the air, touting their work with this Hitler. I mean, if he were really Hitler, if he were really a threat to democracy, not a single Democrat in this country would be running ads touting their work with Donald Trump. Now, I'm calloused on this Hitler business because I lived through the Bush years. And I used to peer out my window onto Pennsylvania Avenue, and I saw everybody marching around in their brown uniforms, signs up, Bush is Hitler, Bush is Hitler. And then they did it to John McCain. They did it to Mitt Romney. They've done it to Donald Trump. They even did it to Paul Ryan, I recall, at one point. So I've heard it all before. And I think the reason Democrats are freaking out about it right now is because what they have learned is that it's not Republicans who are the Hitlers or the Nazis. It's actually emanating from within their own party. If you want to find Hitlerish, Nazi-esque, anti-Semitic tendencies, look on the left, not the right.
But Scott, you're ducking the issue because this isn't Democrats outside saying
She
this about
literally spoke
Republicans.
in front of the Naval Observatory today.
This is the president, the former president's chief of staff saying this about his boss.
It's her closing
Nobody
argument.
is closer. Everyone thinks that the vice president of the United States is deputy president. That's not true.
Not. It's
The chief of staff is actually the deputy president in the United States. And when that person comes out and says this is a problem, and it's his words, it's not like George W. Bush ever said anything like he admired Hitler. But apparently,
every Republican is Hitler. Every
I do want to
Republican
ask
is
one
Hitler.
question.
This is how ridiculous the Democratic Party has become, right? They don't understand how their rhetoric contributes to political violence. They pretend that their rhetoric never contributes to political violence. Anything good that happens in this country, Democrats want to take all the credit for it. Anything bad that happens in this country, they want to blame the Democrats want to blame Republicans. And it's so like absurd that conservatives are able to predict pretty much how these people are going to operate. A 3-month-old Babylon B prophecy fulfilled. Babylon B made a joke saying Dems will announce a comprehensive plan to win the election by calling Trump Hitler again. This was July 8th, 2024. And 2020, what happened today? She called him Hitler, as you saw from the clip that I just showed you. And Obama's like, I wonder how we became so divided as a country. And as Scott Jennings highlighted there, right, way before I was even born, he highlighted how the Democratic Party always try to associate Republicans with the worst things in history. Hitler was a socialist, so is every socialist a Nazi now? Hitler was an atheist, so is every atheist a Nazi now? Hitler was an artist, so is every artist a Nazi now? Make it make sense. But when it comes to Trump, they want to push it out there, right? They want to push an unsubstantiated stories about Donald Trump saying a comment about he want his generals to be like, he want generals like Hitler. Unsubstantiated claim, no receipts, no recordings, no tape. But they, during the 2020 election, when the Hunter Biden story came out, they said we will not spread a story that is unsubstantiated, except if it's about Trump. That's the media showed its color. The media has shown its true colors. Y'all continue vindicating Trump, bro. And that's why I say I have no regrets with my voting record, voting for Trump back to back. Because it's idiocy like this that pushes me more and more into voting for Trump. And Democrats have no one to blame but themselves. Harris has no one to blame but herself, the media possibly for coddling her, right? And that's why I said adversity in a way is an advantage here. If the media was more critical of Kamala Harris earlier enough in her campaign, she might have been doing better today than she's doing now. But no, the media coddled her. The media treated her like a Hollywood celebrity, and this is the result.
But there are tens of millions of Americans right now who have heard all those things and they don't buy it, or even if they do, they're still going to vote for Donald Trump. He's arguably more popular now than ever. You have 13 days to go. What do you say to those voters to convince them? Because some of them are in this room.
Sure, and I thank you all for taking the time to be here. And you could be doing a number of other things with your time. So this really is proof that we love our country. People are engaged, Anderson, and really want to talk about the issues. And so the issue that you raise, yes, I do believe that Donald Trump is unstable, increasingly unstable, and unfit to serve.
You just saw what I just put out, right? Blame, promise, make a lot of promises, deliver nothing, right? Basic example on my gaslighting video about how you can't gaslight voters into supporting Kamala Harris or voting for Kamala Harris. I think that was the name of my video. I highlighted in that video how she got $7 billion to build EV stations, charging stations. And she only was able to make 8 using, imagine that. You get $7 billion to create charging stations and you only made 8. Somehow she's blaming Trump. Okay. Somehow she deflects to Trump. Okay. Like, one thing I noticed about Kamala Harris supporters, my mom being one of them, whenever I talk to her about Kamala and like what's her plan, all I get is she's for black people and Trump bad. And I go, Mom, can you make a point about Harris without evoking Trump's name, without making it about Trump? I got silence. My mom's not a quiet person, and she was quiet for a while. And I was like, and you expect people to vote for her? And you wonder why it is black people voting for Trump. You make a bunch of promises, you don't deliver anything, or you deliver subpar results. And then instead of taking accountability and responsibility for the results and the outcomes that happen under your governance, somehow you blame Trump for it. Right.
And I don't necessarily think that everyone has heard what you and I have heard repeatedly, which is the people who know Donald Trump best, the people who worked with him in the White House, in the Situation Room.
I'm gonna go on this another tangent too, because when you bring up people, like let's say you fired an employee, right? And an employee put out a story about you. Wouldn't a critical thinking individual be like, well, the former employee has an incentive to kind of disparage their former employer to make themselves not look bad, right? Because at the end of the day, if you did a bad job, if you did a crappy job and your employer fired you, that's a bad stain on your reputation. So what's the more like Machiavellian way of preserving your reputation? Hurt the reputation of your employer, so that way you can make it seem like you were fired for for no good reason. And I think this is what's going on with the whole Trump story. So her relying on that is why people are skeptical of this. Trump said this thing, like no one cares. You can't substantiate it, yet we expect to believe that. But if Trump makes a claim about how Kamala Harris never worked at McDonald's and she can't substantiate the fact that she did work at McDonald's, for some reason we're just supposed to believe Kamala Harris and everything she says. And this is my problem with the Democrats. Democrats sit here pretend that you're supposed to trust them and at their every word without any evidence, and you're supposed to just trust a Republican that comes out, anything that comes out of a Republican's mouth without any evidence. Like, make it make sense. And you wonder why conservatives can articulate a message when it comes to the issues better than the Democrats.
In the Oval Office, all Republicans, by the way, who served in his administration, his former chief of staff, his national security advisor, former secretaries of defense, and his vice president have all called him unfit and dangerous. They have said explicitly he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. They have said he should never again serve as president of the United States. We know that is why Mike Pence is not running with him again, why the job was empty. And then today we learned that John Kelly, a 4-star Marine general, who was his longest-serving chief of staff, gave an interview recently in the last 2 weeks of this election talking about how dangerous Donald Trump is. And I think one has to think about...
John Kelly is the general that made the statement that he said that Donald Trump wanted generals like Hitler. And one thing I would like to point out is it's so convenient that this man waited 4 years to deliver this story when, where was this when Donald Trump was running in 2020? You see why people are skeptical?
At least before, there were folks who we know what he would say, but they would restrain him. Imagine now Donald Trump in the Oval Office, in the Situation Room. He who has openly admired dictators, said he would be a dictator on day one. The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of...
And in context, he said it as a joke, but the Donald Trump can't joke about nothing. Democrats, when you take them literally, you ain't black if you can't decide whether you want to vote for me or Donald Trump. Oh, no, Joe Biden was joking. He misspoke. He did all this stuff, but they don't give Trump the same courtesy. I'll be a dictator on day one. I want to drill, baby, drill, and then that's it. He said you want to be a dictator on day one. You see the game? You see the game? And they wonder why no one trusts the mainstream media. Mainstream media calls the toxic, tribal, bipartisan, partisan culture and political climate that we're experiencing today because of stuff like this. And when Republicans call it out, when conservatives call it out, liberals pretend it's not happening. They dismiss, they minimize the concerns of non-Democrat, non-liberal people. And now they're mad that non-Democrat, non-liberal people don't trust them and legacy media. You created your own destruction.
Staff has said he is a fascist to the core. So I think that when the American people reflect, especially those who are undecided, on who you should listen to, don't take my word for it. In fact, go online and listen to John Kelly, his voice, talking about what he thinks of Donald Trump.
Notice how she pointed you directly to him and not stories that go counter to that. Hey, is there a counter argument for why he will do that? Is there a possible motive for him to come out now, 4 years later, when he could have brung out that same revelation during 2020? What made him change his story now? What made him came out now? There has to be a question of motive, right? But she's like, oh, just believe what people say. If someone make an accusation on Kamala Harris, like with Doug Emhoff, are we supposed to just believe them? No, we would want some, hey, well, you got any receipts? But no, it seems like the left, they only want receipts to disprove a claim that they make. Make it make sense.
2 weeks before the election, because I think we all know, to your point, Anderson, it is close, but there are undecided voters who clearly, by being here, have an open mind, want to talk in a way that is grounded in issues and fact. And when they hear these facts, I think it compels a lot of people to be concerned.
The fact is, I've been in office for 3.5 years. Fact is, you had billions of dollars and you weren't able to do nothing with it. You didn't give any tangible results for it. And you want to be trusted with the government? When you're a co-pilot to an administration where you were 33 times, you were the tie-breaking vote to pass a lot of these policies that gave us a bad result, and you had to correct those bad results in the 2024 in time for the election. But the damage has already been done. And the cost of living in general is up 20%. That means if you didn't increase your income by 20% throughout the Biden administration, you lost money. This is why real wages are down, not up. They are down. Because you hurt our buying power by doing stuff like student loan forgiveness, which I just mentioned, contributed 27% towards inflation. Government spending creates inflation because inflation is an invisible tax where the government extracts the value of money today and we pay for it tomorrow with less power, less purchasing power, and less weight. Make it make sense. But you want to blame corporations when the real problem is you. But the minute Republicans talk about a zero-based budget, everyone on the left will say, "Oh my God, they're trying to destroy vital programs for Americans." And Americans, I think the voter has to lose this entitlement and just understand that the government is usually the source of most of the problems surrounding the environment of private business. But they love to obfuscate responsibility, as you see, prime example, Kamala Harris and Biden. Anything wrong with the economy, Trump somehow is at fault with it, instead of taking responsibility for it. And the government operates the same way. But I digress. I already made my vote. Let me hear yours in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.